is the fact that the San Francisco 49ers lost their third game in a row after starting the season 5-0, as the Bengals beat the 49ers 31-17. Toddy, I'm going to toss it to you first as the other 49ers fan on this panel. And Kevin, if you'd like me to give my 2 cents on this as well, because I did miss last week in another loss against the Vikings, and Kirk Cousins, feel bad for him now since what's happened in the last week, but he beat the Niners. And so it's been a rough couple weeks, Jaevon, for us as 49ers fans. And I saw your comments both on the podcast last week, but also on Instagram, that hopefully Kevin and all the haters, they will rue the day, and the Niners, they will come back and they will redeem themselves. But how are you feeling after a third straight loss for the San Francisco 49ers, Jaevon?
Not good. Have they figured us out? Is the jig up?
I guess so.
On everybody else to where it's like, all right, the jig is up, guys. This was a nice little ride that you had. The magic dust is starting to wear off because the clock's starting to strike midnight. Is Prince Charming turning into a frog? Is this actually happening right now? Is Fiona turning back into an ogre? Is this actually happening?
I love it. I love it, Toddy.
It's beginning to get frustrating because he was a guy, he being Brock Purdy, a guy that, values and not turning the ball over, taking care of the ball, having a good touchdown to turnover ratio, good QBR, and just basically running the offense, staying within, and being able to take care of the ball. Like in the past, in each loss, he's had a turnover, whether that's a fumble or he's throwing it to the other team, dead in the hands. So it's kind of just getting to the point where, like, what are you seeing on the field that's causing you to go back to the same exact thing, and you're constantly throwing it to and it usually happens like in the middle of the field. But just the interception that he had in the red zone was just god awful. Like, those are things that cannot happen at all. Like, when I say, like, just throw the ball away. Like, you don't even. He was scrambling around. Brock Purdy gets I feel like doesn't really get a lot of credit for the type of athlete that he is, and from him using his legs. I thought he used his legs fairly well this past game. But for him in the red zone to throw that, like, why would you even throw that? Just get out of bounds, take us whatever. You cannot turn the ball over in the red zone. That's just pretty much. I wouldn't say that he played bad. He threw for 360 plus, whether that's him going over the middle of the field, guys are wide open. There's yak yards involved with that. I wouldn't say they played bad. I just think that his turnovers are so bad that it's outweighing pretty much his whole entire performance, because these are game-changing interceptions. Like, when you turn the ball over, Joe Burrow, like, first of all, the Niners can't stop. They can't hold water. They couldn't stop the Titanic from sinking in the ocean. Like, it's getting to a point where guys are saying that Steve Wilks, like, they're calling for Steve Wilks' job. And to where, like, he's going into the booth to call plays, and they're saying, well, he needs to be on the sidelines because he needs to be able to see the field better. I don't know. Because usually if people that go into the booth, it's usually, defensive coordinators, depending on whatever their feel for the game is, they're usually on the field. But some people call it better in the booth. But that's neither here nor there. But Steve Wilks, how can this team be that bad on defense from what I saw? It's literally the exact same defense from last year, if not better. The talent on the defense is there. And when you just see guys going up and down on the field like Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, PJ Walker moved the ball on us. So it's just like, I get Brock Purdy turning the ball over. That's not good. That's actually really bad. I feel like that's half of the reason why we're losing all these games. But when the defense is just when the defense can't stop anybody and they're just getting the ball moved on them up and down the field, it's very alarming. And when you have guys like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, who just signed a massive contract, Javon Hargrave, you signed to a massive contract, can't get pressure on the quarterback, and you're having to constantly send blitzes. I'm just like, why are we shouldn't even be having to have to do that? And I even saw on Richard Sherman's podcast, he said something about Steve Wilkes used to be a defensive back coach and saying that he's not used to just getting, pressure on the quarterback and just having to send blitzes all the time. So he's not really accustomed to not having to blitz as much because he's used to everything on the back end. So it's very frustrating because the quarterback, who by all standards, I mean, how many starts does Brock Purdy have? Like 13, 14?
Like 15, something like
15.
that.
So almost full season under his belt. So it's not like, hey, like this is something like you can't turn the ball over, man. And that's just, if you turn the ball over multiple times in the NFL, like 2-3 times, that's for anybody in the league. Even look at Mahomes this past weekend, who couldn't even score a touchdown this past weekend, and he's turning the ball over. You're not going to be able to win. It doesn't matter who you play. They beat the Broncos this past weekend. I'm pretty sure we'll get into that game later, but the quarterback can't turn the ball over, man. And it's not. And a combination of turning the ball over and your defense can't stop anybody, you're not going to win football games. And I don't know what the 49ers need to do because I'm just kind of over it. As far as betting goes for the San Francisco 49ers, they're on the shit list, man. I can't. You can't bet them. You can't bet them during the spread. I mean, shit. Are we going to be favored against Jacksonville after the bye week? I don't know. The way that they've been playing, so it's frustrating because you're looking at the teams like we're second in the division. Seattle's number 1 in the division. You just saw the Lions coming off a Monday night victory. They're 6-2. So you're kind of looking at, the other guys kind of coming up and say, like, all right, hey, maybe first place isn't as locked up as it is. Second place isn't as locked up as it is. We can have home field advantage during the playoffs. And, man, it's just going to come down to, can the Niners, pick themselves up by the bootstraps, figure out what's wrong with the defense, and can they not turn the ball over? So, it's very frustrating because this is the 3rd game in a row. When any team loses 3 games in a row in the NFL, it's just like, whoa, like what's wrong? What's going on in San Francisco? I feel like the whole league is kind of put on notice. Like, what happened? Is this the same team that played Dallas on Sunday Night Football and absolutely trounced them 42-10? This is a totally different team. So I don't know, man. It's very frustrating from a gambling perspective and from an actual 49er perspective. It's very frustrating. One of the best teams in the league can't win a game, can't get stops, can't not turn the ball over. I don't know.
I completely agree. I've been very frustrated. I went to my mom's house to watch the second half of the game yesterday. And when I got there, she's like, Shaun, what's wrong with you? And when I got there, I felt fine. Like, I didn't feel like anything was wrong with me. But I guess she could just tell that my mood was off. And it was likely because I just watched the first half of that 49ers game against the Bengals. And just the failed opportunities that they had. And it was frustrating. And so now, Kevin, I'm going to bring this to you because a couple weeks ago, to be precise, actually about a month ago, about 4 weeks ago, the Eagles got to 4-0. They beat the Commanders in overtime. Eagles got to 4-0. And I asked you, should Eagles fans be concerned? Now let's flip it. Flip it on Jaevon and I. Because now, rather than getting 4 ugly wins like the Eagles did, and that's why I was asking you, should you be concerned as an Eagles fan? The 49ers have actually lost 3 games in a row. And so for you, Kevin, as an Eagles fan, from the outsider's perspective, should us 49ers fans be concerned by this 3-game losing streak, or is it kind of just an anomaly?
No, you definitely need to be concerned. Toddy, I'm going to ask you a question. What do they call the guy that's picked? Oh, he's not paying attention. Shaun, what do they call the last person drafted in the NFL draft?
Mr. Irrelevant.
That's his name, Mr. Irrelevant. I told everybody all season long, this Disney Channel movie is going to have to come to an end at some point, and it's continuous to the downward spiral. When you guys are ahead, Brock Purdy has 6 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. When you guys are trailing, it is 0 touchdowns to 5 picks and 1 fumble. Brock Purdy, we always talk about him being a system quarterback. When all things are going right, Brock Purdy's got to go out there and be successful. When things are not going right, we're going to see his true colors. Last game, everyone said that the second half was all because he was concussed. A, B, C, and D. We're going to throw that in the drain. For this game, for him to consistently throw you guys under the bus, his last 3 games, he's thrown for 762 yards, 5 interceptions, 1 fumble, and 3 touchdowns. Sacked 6 times, and all of those games are without Trent Williams. So it's really looking – you could talk about the offense, but let's talk about the defense. We ain't seen this defense show up since the Steelers game, if we're being honest. You guys, we talked about the guys that you guys have on this team. Jaevon Hargrave had 3 sacks that game. Everyone has sacks this game. Shaun, I don't know if you really caught this line from Toddy last week, but Skims boy, he was too worried about the Skims boy. We also always saw before the games, always saw on Twitter, he was trending. I'm thinking there's another pregame fight, but no. All they're talking about is him signing this Skims deal. And Shaun, you missed it last weekend, man. We had a special appearance by our guest, Wes.
I saw
had to come on here and just let it know to be known to be Toddy. Before the show started, Toddy caught me talking to Wes. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna let you know when to come on. And then Toddy came. I was like, all right, I'm gonna hang up. And he goes, so who are you talking to? I was like, oh, nobody. So I wanted to make sure that I set the mood for this. But to the original question, should Niner fans be worried? Yes, because it only gets worse. We have the red hot Jacksonville Jags coming in, and you guys are going on. Is it in Jacksonville, I believe?
Yes,
I think so.
So Jacksonville is leading the NFL in takeaways, and Trevor Lawrence at home this last 5 games, 240 yards per game, 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions with a 70% completion rate. The Jags are playing great right now. We're starting to see the emergence of this offense and what we thought they can be. And the last thing I'm going to say on this before I pass it off is the Eagles were 4-0 playing bad, and there was a Super Bowl hangover. You guys lost 3 games in a row. Is there a NFC championship game hangover? I don't know. But Niner fans should definitely be worried.
So I'm going to attribute most of this to the fact that Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel are missing. And I know that that's a cop-out. I get it. But Trent Williams isn't one of the best linemen in the NFL. He's not one of the best left tackles in the NFL. He's the best by far. Like, it's not even close. So arguably you're missing arguably ever in the game of football, period. And so you're missing arguably the greatest offensive lineman in NFL history. And then you're missing one of your top playmakers who's so versatile that they had to create another name of a position and call him a wide back because he was so much of a wide receiver and a running back. And so to me, I won't be concerned. Like, number one, I'm trying not to overreact. I'm trying not to live in the moment too much and just focus on the fact that they're on a 3-game losing streak because of those 2 players missing. If everyone was out there, then I would be genuinely concerned. But until the 3-5, I think. I think it even got to 3-5. Yeah, because I believe I could be thinking. I believe that I'm thinking about 2022 because I went to a 49ers game on Monday Night Football against the Rams. And I believe that was last season when they were 3-5. And at that point, I was like, all right, we're about to get smacked by the Rams. The Rams were the reigning Super Bowl champions.
Yep,
and then the 49ers upset them on Monday Night Football. And then they went on that streak. And they finished the season like something like 11-5 or 12-5. And so it's possible. I'm not going to overreact. Like, we're technically not even halfway through the season. It's now 17 games every season. So we're through 8 games. And the 49ers have a 5-3 record. If they started the season, Kevin, 3-2, and now they got to 5-3, I'd be feeling great. I mean, last season, as Jaevon and I just mentioned, they were 3-5. So I'm feeling optimistic because it feels like it's gone so bad, but yet here they are at 5-3. And until they get those 2 playmakers back, I won't start to be concerned.
I feel like the last 2 games that we played, like the Browns game at the end, that should have been a game that we won. The Vikings game, it was like we had a chance to win it. I feel like that also should have been a game to win. I feel like this game, we got our ass kicked. Like, it wasn't close. The score doesn't really reflect that how bad it actually was. but we got our ass drug up and down the field the entire game. And Purdy played bad. I wouldn't say bad. He played like he was part of the reason why we lost this game. And I would also say that for the Vikings game and for the Browns game. So just how close I feel like the last two games were, like we actually had a chance to win those games. I feel like this game, it was like, all right, we got drugged. Whether if, it's very frustrating. I can't remember the last time we lost 3 games in a row. It's probably going back a few years when Kyle Shanahan probably first started out back in 2017. So we got to figure out. We got to figure this shit out. I mean, the Cowboys have a better record than us right now, so it's a humbling week. We're going into the bye week. We gotta figure out what we need to do. Do we need to make some moves? Tomorrow's trade deadline, so Kev's been going back and forth saying that the Eagles are going to get Surtain. The Eagles get Surtain, I'm going to freaking cry. I'm going to throw up.
I'm going to name my son Howie. My first kid, boy or girl, will be named Howie.
They already added Kevin Byard to the secondary this past week. So we'll see what the Niners do at the trade deadline. If we make any moves, if nothing happens, people stay put. I've been seeing that the Commanders, as one of the announcers said over the weekend, the Commandos they're having a sale, I guess a fire sale. Montez Sweat and Chase Young are on the market apparently. So we'll see if the Niners make any moves at that. Do they fire Steve Wilkes? I'm not sure. A lot of people are kind of calling for his head. Kyle seemed visibly frustrated at I just don't understand how bad this defense can be. Like, this is literally the exact same defense, if not better, as I've already said previously in the podcast, because this defense last year was like the best defense in football, and now we can't stop anybody.
Well, I want to make a counterpoint to that, and Gary's not here, so someone has to play devil's advocate, because I understand the point you're trying to make there, Jaevon, but also what we got to keep in mind is when the 49ers went from Robert Saleh to DeMeco Ryans as their new defensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans was already in the system. He was already in the building for like 4 or 5 years at that point. He started as like a low-level assistant, became the linebackers coach, and then eventually got to defensive coordinator. And so DeMeco was already in the building. The guys already knew him. They already believed in him. Versus a Steve Wilkes, he was in Carolina last year. He was the interim head coach in Carolina, arguably should have gotten that position, but then it went to Frank Reich. And so I would attribute it more so to the fact that it's just a new defensive coordinator and you can't keep constantly. And the 49ers are having turnover for all the right reasons. Like all of these guys, whether if it be DeMeco and Robert Saleh going on to be head coaches, or even a Mike McDaniel going on to be a head coach, it's positives why these coaches are leaving the 49ers, but it does create turnover and less continuity and chemistry. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit with the 49ers defense. And so I would attribute that to be the reason as to why the defense has struggled in these last 3 weeks. But also, I'm really just looking at the 49ers missing 2 of their best players. I know they have a lot of great playmakers, but as Manny says on the YouTube comments, Debo is your most important playmaker. And I would agree with him, because even though Christian McCaffrey scored a touchdown in this game against the Bengals for his 17th straight game with a touchdown, which tied an NFL record, next week he's likely going to break that record for a consecutive touchdown streak. And after next week, because the 49ers are having a bye week this upcoming week. Thank you, Jaevon. And that leads me to my last point, which is that early buys, I would consider this an early buy in week 9. Actually, it's not actually early. That's literally at the exact midpoint of the season. So it's actually probably the perfect time for a buy, even if they weren't on a slump. And so now, yeah, it's unfortunate that the 49ers have to have 3 losses in a row sitting with them for 2 weeks, but I think this is good for them. It gives them a chance to regroup, reset, and then attack the second half of the season. Let's get a majority of the win so then they can be a high seed. It looks like if Philadelphia keeps cruising, and Kevin, I'm sure, thinks that they will, then Philly will end up with the number 1 seed again and the only first round bye. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And something else that Kaz mentioned in the YouTube comments is that Hurts was banged up and stepped up and played phenomenal. Purdy has a bit of adversity mixed with injury, and he plays atrocious. There's levels to greatness.
But I didn't even say anything about Jalen Hurts, though. That's the crazy
Preach.
Well,
no one said anything about Jalen Hurts. We get it.
No one said anything about Jalen Hurts. Yeah, but you know how it is. You know how it is, Jaevon. It's got to be 100 degrees of Eagles. I mean, I'm sure Kevin would have thought the same thing, thinking of things from the Eagles fan perspective. It's understandable because that's how I think of things all the time, is from the 49ers fan perspective. Nevertheless, 49ers lost their third game in a row. I think it's the perfect time for the bye week. As Jaevon said, shouldn't have lost that Browns game. Moody's kind of the reason why they lost that one. They kind of just got beat by the Vikings, and the Vikings were playing really well, which is why it's upsetting that Kirk Cousins is now out for the season. And then the Bengals are playing well too. Like Joe Burrow seems to finally be healthy, and he had himself a day against the Niners. Like he threw 19 consecutive pass attempts or 19 consecutive completions in this game, which set a new career high for himself. He finished 28 of 32 for 326 total yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Joe Burrow has 8 touchdowns in his last 3 games. So he's playing very well. And as Kevin mentioned, Kevin mentioned something similar, that in his first 5 games of the season, Brock Purdy had 11 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Niners had a 5-0 record. Since they are 0-3, he has 3 total touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That ain't good. So he's got to get it right. And he has the bye week to refocus and readjust. So